Well, good afternoon to you, Scott Baker.
Mikey, how are you? Welcome to Lead Better. It is the edition for Friday, October the 3rd, and this would be field note number 1576. And the title is I'm Counting on You. Four powerful words.
Yeah. And I think everybody in the comments is kind of saying the same thing. It's like, oh, that is right. It goes way beyond just simple praise, and it carries a lot of weight. It does a lot of heavy lifting for us.
Right. Yeah, and the idea is that leaders probably don't think about this enough. It's a great expression of exactly it's beyond praise. It's the idea of reliance, performance. It's helping you want to sort of elevate to realize that what you're doing really matters. Now, I think that there are some reasons to believe that this doesn't always work, and so therefore, in our discussion, maybe we can think about the best ways about how we deploy this. I'll put it this way. I don't think that I'm counting on you should be put in the category of like an incantation, that if we just say these words, everything gets better.
Sure. Yeah. No, but it's definitely the type of thing that it probably carries certain kinds of weight in certain moments. If it becomes trite or overused, then it's something that we need to adjust for, which is probably why phrases like this don't ever count as admired leadership behaviors, because it's difficult to count them as universal, right?
Yeah.
And how they're said in other cultures, because we've got a metaphor here, and it's a bit of a weird metaphor, right? I even looked up the etymology of like, when did I'm counting on you start, right?
Okay.
And it dates back.
Fill me in. Bring it on.
It dates back to the 1600s, but there aren't a whole lot of examples that say, oh, this is what it is, right? Or this is what it's about. Or It's really like what you would think. It's about enumeration. It's mainly about like census taking and voting, right? And so people were, trying to get a count of who is in and who is out. And so it's not thinking of it as a phrase determined on dependability was a little bit later in the game. And then we've got this propaganda poster in the United States that was used. And so I didn't realize that Uncle Sam was someone who back in the early 40s was somebody who was saying this phrase in particular, right? I always thought of Uncle Sam as like this recruiting guy, but the Office of War Information used this idea of like, I'm counting on you to keep quiet. So I had never even seen this notion of like Uncle Sam putting his finger up to his lips saying, you need to keep quiet about stuff. But this is how it was used in American culture in a strong way that says, and by this time, the etymology was like, it clearly means I'm depending on you.
Yeah.
But it didn't start out that way.
And look, I mean, I think you could trivialize the idea about whether, if we actually just, are quiet about stuff. Because actually, like right now, do we actually think that they're not listening to us?
Yeah. It doesn't matter anymore, right?
Any like if it's not this government or that government or the platform in which we're recording, I don't know. Like, right? We kind of assume that. So you're sort of like you're accountable for your own language. But I think that the thing that is at the heart of this one for me anyway is that in order for it to not be a technique or a cliche, is that it actually has to be true, right? If I say I'm counting on you, it really that has to actually feel correct in both directions. I actually do need to think that the thing I'm asking you to do is very important to me. I believe that you're the one to do it better than other people that I could ask or should ask, or maybe you're the one that's volunteered. I actually have to believe that it's additive to what I bring to the project myself. I'm not just pushing work off of myself to you, and that you actually have to feel that at a very deep and visceral level. This person who is asking me to do this and saying, I'm counting on you. It can't just be like, hey, counting on you. Appreciate you. Right. Then I don't think it works.
Yes.
If I feel like somebody's asking me to say, you're willing to do this? Yes.
Right. So you
I'm
feel
counting
like
on you.
it almost
Yeah.
has to be associated with the task. Like it can't
Well,
just be like
it can be
appreciate you as the
it can be a role.
replacement
It
one
could be a
can be as,
role. Yeah.
uh-huh. You mentioned appreciate you as like this
Hmm.
thing that we're substituting for, right? And
Hmm.
so I would want to be able to use something like this to substitute out I appreciate you, but I don't think it stands in good. It's not a good substitute for I appreciate you.
Well, appreciate
It needs
is
to be
more
better.
about praise or thanks. Counting on you relies on an idea of dependence or a
Right.
collaboration, or that we're yoked together in some uh, joint labor. Right? Those are
Yes.
things that have a real nobility to them.
Right.
And even to the level of I don't know how you hear it, but I actually can remember not that many years ago, maybe 6 years ago, was the first time I really heard people saying. I kind of remember the first time I heard it. Somebody saying, "Appreciate you,"
Yeah.
and I was like, "Huh." And then I realized I was hearing it more, and then it was sort of connected inside our firm. And then I realized, oh, this is, and then I was like in some of these big Wall Street firms because I was out kind of on the front line of coaching and advising before we launched Admired Leadership Digital. And then I would be like, oh, this is kind of like a hip phrase that they're using, in that sector, right?
Right.
Appreciate you, right? So it started to be, and then all of a sudden now you hear it all the time. I hear it on social media, you hear it on TikTok, you hear it on X clips, you hear it a lot in sports. Appreciate you, right? It's just it's like and now it's still an interesting phrase, but it's become
Does it ironically now
worn
mean
out.
does
Yeah,
it mean the opposite of what you really mean?
yeah. I think it just is kind of like, hey, thanks, good to see you.
Yeah. Well, here in the South, right, where I live in Texas, you don't want anyone to say "bless your heart," right?
Yeah, right.
Because
Yeah,
because to a Northerner hearing that, it means like, oh, what a friendly group of people, right? But what we know here
yeah.
is that it is an insult, right? It
Yeah,
is.
I don't think when people say appreciate you that it is an insult like it might be perceived if somebody said bless your heart.
Yeah.
Because the bless your heart is kind of like I'm quietly, not even that quietly, judging you. And
Yes.
I'm going to say, well, bless your heart.
Yeah.
Aren't you so naive? Aren't you so
Right.
like deluded? And I'm just like, I almost feel sorry for you in your
Right.
misguided ways. I kind of don't put appreciate. We're on a little sidetrack, but it's interesting. There are phrases that kind of and I don't think that there's anything wrong with using phrases that have eternal resonance, right? That have some power to them, but you actually have to mean them when you say them.
Right.
And so I think that that's the case here. When I say, I'm counting on you, I'm depending on you. And we have said this. Now the field note says 4 words. Like that can make a huge difference. It doesn't have to be exactly those 4 words. Right? The idea is the reliance. The idea is the feeling that my role, my connection, whether it's a specific ask, a specific task, has a time deadline, or a role or a function, it could be broader, right? That there's a real clear delineation here.
Yeah.
But then when it's underlined by a leader I would want a leader who, even if they said it once a week, which is probably too often,
Yeah.
I would want to have a sense that whenever they say it, my ears prick up. Oh,
Yeah.
this must really matter.
How do you feel about using it as part of a mantra, right? If a floor manager is doing a rah-rah meeting with their Walmart employees to send them out and saying, okay, we want to create great experiences all over the, all over the floor, and we're counting on you to be the front line to deliver those to us, right? So that version of I'm counting on you kind of gets stuck in there, is like, this is how we close our meeting. Some version of I'm counting on you in there. Does it become a little too trite in that moment? It feels like it probably loses its real bite. Like
I think it
one-on-one.
I actually do think, when we talked with Wanda yesterday, and it was in a different context, but she was talking about the leader kind of doing the like, well, what's your motive?
Yeah.
Right. We can see through this. Long ago, I did a stint right out of college where I worked at CBS News on a fellowship program. And at the end of that program, Dan Rather was the anchor of the CBS Evening News at the time, and he had written a book. Maybe he wrote a couple, but he wrote a book that was called, had a great title, "The Camera Never Blinks." And yeah, that's true, right? So, and now we're just used to doing this stuff in this format, but back then it was a little harder to be on camera all the time. And you realize, oh, people are looking at you,
Yeah.
and so I ended up being on television for the next couple of decades, and so you got used to that. Then I don't even know that like everybody, even in our firm, we have a lot of people on video, and we have people that come on this program with us, and you still have to get to that idea that leaders are never off camera, even when there's no video rolling, right? And so I think that that's the thing here, which is I don't mind the idea of the rah-rah mantra if I actually have, if the elevation of the joint task of what we're doing. And it doesn't always have to have some sort of ethereal sort of, we're going to save the world. But if I've laid out the stakes and here's what's in it for the company, here's what this means for me, here's what it means for you, here's what I want it to mean for you. And I say, all right, this is what's going to take. Yeah. I'm counting on everybody here to do their job. I think that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently you've heard it in context where you just didn't buy it or believe it.
No, I just don't want it to be diminished to the point where it doesn't really mean anything anymore. But I might be grasping at straws because eventually stuff can be used ironically and then it doesn't carry any meaning anymore.
Yeah.
I just learned recently that, 2 thumbs up in a text as you respond is like a sarcastic version of a thumbs up, right?
Huh.
But I didn't realize that, and we were talking about it with Megan.
This
Cronin.
is why my wife isn't talking.
Right? No. But it's like if I just gave you the 1 thumbs up in a text, it'd be like, got it, right? But if it's 2 thumbs up, it's like, okay, Mom, I got it, right?
Yeah.
And so Megan was explaining that to me and Randall when we were in Utah together. And then we had some details that were going back and forth in a group text. And every time we would, send him an update, he would send us a double thumbs up. Right. And it was very funny the first time he did it because he was, doing a callback.
Yeah.
And then since then, personally, he sent me 2 different double thumbs up. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, is it still funny? Right. I know what he's doing. Right. But at some point I'm like, is he actually trying to be sarcastic? Right. And am I missing it? Right. And so the meaning of phrases changes so much and so quickly.
Right.
Like if we are using this as technique, I don't want to use it as technique. I want to use it genuinely, right? Because I want to encourage people instead of praise people. I want to use something like this. And this does all of that. But if it loses its meaning because it becomes too popular and then people start to use it ironically, then, right?
Yeah.
So in some way we're saying, we hope this doesn't get out, right? Maybe this doesn't become the viral field note that gets spread everywhere where everyone says I'm counting on you, because when that happens, then I'm counting on you actually means something very different.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, in the middle of all of that, you're in a situation where you can have a joke, right? You can have some things that you kind of do as little offhands that do underline real affection. They're not always just satirical, and we can't cover all of this in the last minute and a half of this conversation, which we do for 15-minute cycles. We're entering a period that many people believe is a period of less cynicism and irony. Right? You can see it in the movies that are being produced. There was this period of time where all of the superhero movies were sort of, you had to have this inverted sort of demonic version of the superhero in some fashion. And now Superman is Superman again, right? Yeah. Like there's a different feeling, and there's things you can point to. There's a lot of problems in the world, but there's sort of an idea that maybe I mentioned this, that like Creed has become a very popular band because of the music and the themes, because there's a generation that doesn't see them as cringe. Like they don't even remember that there was a generation that thought of them that way.
Right.
And so when you say I'm counting on you, I don't think it has to be that way or be seen as something cynical. I was reading an article, for example, about at a major level, like Starbucks is trying to do a massive way of redoing the way that they serve customers, right? They have a new CEO. He'd been at Chipotle. He's been on the job, I don't know, a year. He's brought somebody out of retirement to help and a few other people. And they have an enormous number of baristas, probably tens of thousands, right? That they have to say, here's what we're doing and here's why. Here's what it means to look somebody in the eye. And you can imagine that people would be like, they had a big conference. I think it was in Las Vegas, and they were talking about all the new policies. And there was a big Wall Street Journal article on this. And there's a lot of enthusiasm. I'm sure there's some eye rolling, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there's some people that are cynical about it. And so whether that works or not really comes down to the leader, the CEO, and all the people in between that are not only articulating what this means for the company, for each one of those franchise locations, for each person that's there, for what it means to you. Because, and I've used this illustration before, when they talk, there's a little point in this thing about like how you make eye contact with the customer. And I've even said that when I would go to Manhattan every week for 5 years, and I would go into a particular fitness chain location, that it was always interesting to me that when I went in, they would say, have a good workout, Scott. Mm-hmm. And I knew they would look at me and say that. I knew I'm just the number in the computer. Like that when they scanned my card, it had my name come up, right? And I realized that I'd been a member back then of a fitness club here in Pittsburgh. I'd been there for 10 years. Not one person at the front desk had ever said my name out loud at all, ever, right? And you're like, huh. Well, am I being manipulated by the fact that somebody said, have a good workout, Scott? And it's interesting. Right. I travel around now, and I sometimes go into another large fitness chain. I was just in one in Illinois just last week. And 2 times I went in, and on 2 different days, 2 different people were checking me in, scanned my card on a day pass, right? And they both said, good to see you, Scott. Right? Now, that I know is because of a corporate policy that they have decided, oh, this other big chain does it. We're going to do it now. But my point is this, I'm counting on you. It actually has to come down for that Starbucks CEO to say, this organization, are counting on you as our baristas to implement this so that our customers feel welcome. But to me, the importance of that is to say, you are going to become a better human being.
Yeah,
right. You, if you're kind of on team with us, that we're about the idea, wouldn't we want to live on a planet where we actually mean something as individuals, right? And so that if we can actually be part of some way, some little piece of magic, right, that we can have these interactions, then if I say, here's this policy, I'm counting on you. I want to feel it from you. I want to feel the thing you're asking me to do. Like the CEO is giving me the eye contact he's asking me to give to the people that are walking in there just to get a latte. Right. All right. That's a little bit longer of a rant than I had intended to do. But I'm a believer in it, and I'm a believer and I'm counting on you. And that's why everybody that is watching live now or listening later, I'm counting on you. Mikey, I don't know if he's counting on you, but I am.
All right. I'm counting on you to say something. If you're at Chick-fil-A, you're going to say my pleasure, right?
There you go.
But it better really be your pleasure, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Scott.
See you tomorrow.
Bye now.